The Executive and the Mystic podcast, co-hosted by Fred LeFranc and Christina Wiltsey, where wisdom meets business. Welcome back for part 2 of Cancer, COVID, and Croissants. As we listen to Fred as he goes through and talks more about his, what I would call his alchemical journey in all of this, his spiritual journey, and how he went through and how his mentality and emotions shifted throughout. And really he took, not control, but he became actively engaged and an active participant in his journey. And so that's going to be part 2 where we talk about that.
Yeah, I said, as you heard in part 1, it explains all the process that I went through, sort of the mechanics of it, but also this concept of surrender, to really transform and go through an ego death and accept that I had no control over things, be willing to receive help, ask for help, and the benefit that I had. And as I say in the videotape, I am now very, very grateful that my body got cancer. I didn't get cancer, my body did. And as a result of that, I was able to work with Christina and medical doctors to eliminate it. So I hope you enjoyed part 2.
So incredible in terms of probably in a 6 or 7 month period, and from my perspective, it was interesting because, you used to say, I want to focus on physical healing and releasing fear. And, I think it took Bruce in many ways to kind of get through that idea of like, okay, it's physical, but there's also other aspects of this, right? And yes, we want to release fear, but what else is going to come in that's going to make it so that fear is no longer emphasized? It's like trying to get a song out of your head by concentrating and looking at the song over and over again, right? It's like, to use a different example. So, massive transformation that happened here in terms of, and I can attest to this open heart. When you came back from India, it was like, I think we would just sit there and kind of giggle on the Zoom and things along those lines, on our calls, because it was just such a potent force that came through you. But I think that there's also some subtle things too that happened in that time period. One of the things that I loved watching was the group healing that happened as a result. That was one of the things that you kind of put into place during that period. Can you describe that experience and what that was like for you?
Yeah. God, we've gone through a lot.
I know.
So I mentioned that when I first met you, I went through my first Shield Dispenser seminar, retreat, whatever you want to call it. And I actually went through a second one before the radiation. We'll talk about the third one in a minute. And one of the things that I discovered when I was there is they would have these healing sessions. And I didn't expect that. I thought it was just going to be more about meditation and lecture. And there's a lot of lecture. We were there at 6 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night. And one day we started at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's an intense, like a boot camp. And what they do is they have 3 healing sessions, and they select Heelees, as they call them. They don't call them patients. They call them Heelees. And then we act as healers. And they set the ballroom where a person would lay on a cot in the middle of 2 sets of 4 chairs, right? And they lead you into a darkened ballroom. It's a meditation, it's somber music, and so forth and so on. And you go into random places. And you sit there, and there's someone laying there. They usually have an eye mask on. And there's meditation, and at some point, you rub your hands together, and you open your palms out facing the Healee, and you have your eyes closed, and you're just sending them love and healing. You have no idea what their illness is. You're just sending them energy. Now, this is a ballroom with about 2,500 people. There's a lot of energy in that room. Okay, we talk about coherence. When you have group coherence of that size, it's like a hurricane of energy that's just going around the room. And you hear people screaming, crying, shouting. I mean, it's like, what is going on? My first one was like, I didn't know what to expect. But it was a profound experience. I'll never. So when I do any kind of meditation, especially the kind he was teaching us, I'll experience a lot of energy in my body. And that's what the whole goal is. You're experiencing energy. You're raising your vibration. When you're depressed, your energy is really low. Your vibration is low. When you're happy and excited, your vibration goes up. And that's why people that have this great energy and infectious smiles, stuff like that, you always feel better because they give you energy. There's people just suck like Debbie Downers, like sucking the life out of you. That's all vibration, okay, and frequency. And the first one, I remember this woman set up, took her eye mask off. She had tears coming down her face. And we all hugged her, what's your name, and so forth and so on. what's your condition? And she would share it with us. But it was just beautiful because what, and I'll talk about later on my experience as a Healee, but you see this person who's so grateful for the fact that you gave this energy to them. And I had men and women and so forth and so on. And when I came back, I remember saying, Christina, I experienced this. Can we do this for me? And you were kind enough to drive up to Charlotte to gather some of my dearest close friends to do a healing circle for me, which we did. And then for months afterwards, once a month, we'd have a remote session where there was remote healing because Dispensa offers remote healing, and I participated in one of those. And it was just an amazing experience. And the thing, this is going back to now the control piece. I never asked for help ever in my life. Okay. And I had to ask my friends for help. I asked you for help. And I had to accept it also. It's not just about asking for it, it's also accepting it. And that was a significant change for me. To actually receive that help. And these people who are committed to help me heal in things they didn't understand either, because not everyone had read Dispensa. I had explained it to them. You were kind enough to share that with them. And then we did that. And that was, I think, a big part. A lot of things that went into my healing. That, I think, was one of the big contributors to it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. All right. So there a lot of work, a lot of things, huge period of change, huge as we would maybe call ego death, as I would call ego death that happened in that time period. It was a kind of a multiple different things that happened, but especially in that period between India and the decision to kind of accept things that were coming in. And then, you've moved, you sold your house, you've done all that. I think it was around the end of that period, right, when you were recovering from radiation, that we kind of made a choice to go to Dispensa together for this last one. So can you tell us about that? That happened in April of 2025. Yep.
Yeah. This past year. Well, it was, I always wanted to go back. At that point, I had finished the radiation therapy. I had 18 months of hormone therapy. So I was wrapping that up. And then, of course, once you stop that, you can't just go test to see everything is going, because there's still all these drugs are in you. When your hormones change, your hormones change. I mean, I became a menopausal man, essentially. Hot flashes, incredible hot flashes, 24 hours a day. And they would just sort of show up, like a squall. Your toes sweat. And so I invited you and my wife to join me at the last Dispensa conference I went to. And that one, I actually applied to be a Healee. I basically said, I'm going to see if they will accept me as someone that can be healed. And there's a very long process and forms you got to fill out. And I think they had like 3,000 applicants. They accept 200 people, and I got accepted, which was just wonderful. And I was a Healee, and I went through that experience. And that is the difference. That was very, very different. I had 3 sessions, and you do feel things. You do feel, you're not just laying there. You're participating in what's going on, and you do feel. I felt a lot of energy coursing through my body. And the thing that I remember the first time that I woke up, in fact, I wasn't asleep. I'm sorry. Where I sat up after the session, and I took my eye mask off, and I had 8 strangers around me that were looking at me with such love and kindness. I'd never seen that before. These are people I have never met, but they're looking at me. You just tell in their eyes that they're looking at me with intention and love, kindness, and desire for me to heal. That was amazing. And that's another example of learning to just accept and surrender. There's no control there because you're at their whim. My first session, there was a young man who was sobbing hysterically. In fact, at one point, when I introduced myself, I got his name is Ishmael. And I said, "Do you want to lie down?" Because he was really just racked with sobs, and he couldn't even talk. And I never was able to speak to him during the end of that first session because he just could not stop. And I'm not talking about whimpering, I'm talking about racking sobs for this whole body. My second session was fantastic, but here's the thing where synchronicity comes in. But I opened up my eyes and sat up. Lauren, my wife, is on one side and you are on the other side. And as you both shared, which I'd rather have you explain it, it was random, right? You didn't know
It's totally random. Totally random. Yeah, you get into a line. There are 30 lines. There are 30 people in each line. You know, maybe that math doesn't totally work out, but there, 100 people in each line, and you just file in. Like you fill up the chairs from the farthest end of the ballroom widthwise all the way to the end, and you just sit down in front of whoever you're going to sit down. And I very intentionally used my own intuition to be like, where should I go? Right. And what line should I go in? And sometimes I just find myself skipping lines and just being like walking around all over there. And in that one, I was like, where should I go? And I kept skipping lines, and I just ended up in this one, and it perfectly lined up that with all the other seats filled, I sat down in front of Fred.
And my wife did the same thing. She didn't know you were there either. She ended up, she was in a different line and all that stuff. And so Lauren was there. Now, and to have both to be present for that was really profound for me. I remember the expression on both your faces. When I talk about strangers looking at you with love and kindness, be very unexpected, but here's people that I know and love doing that, but in a very different way. Lauren was as emotional as I've ever known her to be, but again, love and kindness, but just totally open. It was just a beautiful time. The same thing for you, and that was really significant. It was just great. And then the kind of the funny, well, ironic, I don't know what you want to call it, but after the third session, there was this young lady in the group, and she said, were you wearing a hat on your first session? And frankly, I didn't remember. I mean, the ballrooms are cold, so I would assume I was, because I don't have any hair. I said, I think so. She goes, well, do you remember a man named Ishmael? I go, yeah. She goes, well, he had something pretty significant happen to him during your healing. I said, well, what? She goes, well, he should tell you. Oh, it's 2,500 people. Where is he? She goes, well, he walked in next to me. I don't know where he is. He goes, he may be in one of these groups around close to where we were at that part of the ballroom. This is an enormous ballroom. And so she goes, I do have his phone number. I got it from him because I met him a day ago. So I got his phone number. And then she finally said, oh, by the way, he's in that group a couple over. And at that point, we were getting ready to leave for the airport. So as I was leaving, I just tapped him on the shoulder and said, I have your phone number. I'm going to call you. And he said, great. And I did call him. And what he shared with me, the very first healing that I participated in, is that he had a very profound spiritual experience himself, where when he came into the ballroom, he immediately felt a lot of energy. When he sat down, he said he saw this blue light come in front of him and was hovering over me. And he just started feeling all this love and all this emotion for his parents. And the way he talked about it, I thought he had died. He said, no, they're very much alive. I was thinking about it. I hadn't seen him in a long time. He just focused on the people that he loved. That's how you open up your heart. Think about the people you love. And he said his blue light got so intense, and he just felt all his energy running through him. That's why he started sobbing, because he was just feeling all this emotion, this outpouring of love and emotion and energy that he experienced through his hands, this blue light. And then at one point, and this is where it gets kind of woo-woo, he said, I saw an angel on your back. He said, I just saw an angel hovering over you. And he goes, and I just felt all this love. And it was, I had this conversation with him on the phone, and I was like, I didn't know what to say. Think about it. I mean, I was very grateful for what he had to share, but it was a very profound thing he went through. And I was so grateful that I met him, that he could tell me what he experienced going through my healing that was channeled through him.
This episode is brought to you by Results Through Strategy. Since 2006, RTS has been the go-to partner for restaurants and food service brands, navigating growth, transformation, or recovery. Their team of seasoned industry veterans helps companies rediscover their purpose, realign with their values, and implement strategies that build measurable, sustainable performance. And so that kind of, that when we've talked, that last dispensa then led kind of swiftly into your doctor's experiences, right? Which kind of, so can you tell us about the kind of end of the cancer diagnosis and what leads us up to today?
I will, but I have to tell one more story about the conference.
Okay. Yeah.
It had to do with you.
Okay.
So we were going to do another meditation. Of course, we did, dozens
Mm-hmm.
of meditations. And there was one he was talking about. This is like day 4. So we already done hours upon hours meditation. And he was going to do meditation. I think it was about healing. I'm not sure, but somehow I felt it was about healing. And I remember you leaned over to me and said, Fred, you have to give up the doubt. You have to release the skepticism. You got to be all in. You got to really just know that you're healed. Not believe you will be healed, just know that you're healed. Because I'd always kept in the back of my mind. It's like that, oh, the cancer's going to come back. So in the back of my mind, okay, I always knew it was going to come back. So when it came back, as shocking as it was, I kind of knew it was going to come back. And this was one of those where you had this little escape hatch. And you said, you got to get rid of that. You got to go all in. And on that meditation, I did. And it was a significant meditation because it tell you about focusing on what you want to have in your life visually in your mind's eye through your thought, and then feel it in your heart as if it was there. And for the first time, I felt healed. I felt whole. I felt cancer free. And that meditation, I don't know, lasted an hour and a half or whatever it was. Um, I was emotionally spent. I was like Ishmael, I was crying. It was a lot of energy, a lot of release. And it was just, I'd never had experienced something like that before. And I really feel to this day that that was the pivot point for me emotionally to finally just accept the fact that I'm healed. That was April. And then because I had stopped the hormone therapy and waiting for all the after effects to go away in June, I had my PET scan, my second PET scan, and it was clean. It was clear. It was gone. And so that was how I finally reached the stage where I said, okay, I am healed. And it was interesting because when I heard the news, I didn't have this big yippee because my big event was really at that Dispenser conference, that one meditation. That's really when I really felt it. When I got the news, it was a validation of what part of me already knew to be true. And then ironically, a couple weeks before that, my friend Benai and Anthony, they were coming to Atlanta. We went to go see them. I met with that Indian astrologer that Anthony introduced me to. And the first thing he says when he gets on the Zoom call is, you're healed, you're fine. This is before my PET scan. And I was like, okay. I mean, and again, I'm Western minded, kind of like whatever. And then 2 weeks later, the PET scan validated that it was. And again, one of these ironic situations, I was going to be in Orlando and Anthony and Benay were going to be there, or excuse me, Benay were going to be there as well. I had breakfast with them and I said, I got great news. And they said, what? I said, I got my PET scan. I'm healed. And Nandini was eating breakfast. So I was skipping to be, she was already knew that. She had just certainty. I had been told that. And it was like, what he's like, I had to accept that. And so it was perfect juxtaposition about this Western and Eastern approach to life and how it works. But my journey has been very significant. And by the way, the fact that I'm cancer free does not mean it's ended. I need to continue my health journey and my healing
Yes.
in order to extend this, because there's a probability out there, much smaller than before, that it could return. And I don't want to do anything to bring that about. I have to keep myself focused on I'm healed. I have a cancer-free body. I'm healthy and vigorous. I have vitality. And that's what I continue to work on, even though I still have the side effects. The side effects are still with me. I have to deal with those. They're not great, but I'm alive, and that's what's important. I'm alive to really experience life more fully. And now I approach things in a very, very different way, because now it's about deciding what I want to spend my time doing that's going to be fulfilling and meaningful rather than just busy work.
Yes. Yes. And thank you for that correction, in the sense that it's not, and it's an ongoing experience of reiterating and reinforcing the fact that you are healed, and that mind frame that keeps you in that space. And it's not, and I think it's important to say that it's not as if you stop thinking that for a moment that you're going to slide back. It's an incredibly invigorating and freeing perspective to know that your mindset, and that you can get into a space of recognizing and knowing something. And then, yes, maybe the physical world will catch up, right? And be like, oh, guess what? Your PET scan says you're clean. But the experience of what it actually means to feel that mind, body, gut, soul, spirit, whatever you want to call it, is the medicine. Right. And I think that's what people at Dispenza say. That was one of the things that struck me at that conference more than anything was people go up on the stage and do testimonials. And there was a woman who had bile duct cancer, which is, people only catch it when it's in stage 4, right? It has no symptoms, right? And, so she started this vigorous meditation practice. And by the time that she was told to be cancer-free, despite, a very bad prognosis, she was like, I don't even care because the meditation has made me so happy. The meditation has brought so much fulfillment into my life. And that's the way that she described it, that the diagnosis or the remission was just an afterthought.
I would agree with that. One of the things I tell people that think I'm crazy is that I'm grateful that my body got cancer. I didn't get cancer. My body got cancer. Therefore, I now have a body that is cancer-free. The difference is that I don't own the cancer. The cancer doesn't own me. It's something that happened. But I've gone through such incredible experiences as a human being. I wouldn't have gone to India. I wouldn't have gone to this Dispenza conference. I would have spent as much time with you or my friends and so forth and so on in the Healee circles. It's been a gift. And it's really changed my perspective. I'm much, I've always been calm, but I'm calmer on the inside, not just calm on the outside. And I'm much more accepting of how things go. And I also am less reactive. So some of the stuff we talk about on the ABCs, and, balance and coherence and alignment, all that is what I've lived through. And I have seen my life transform in a beautiful way. And now when I reach out and hug my wife, it takes in a very, very different meaning. We are more in love today than we ever have been, but in a way that's really hard to describe. It's just very deep, it's profound, and it's peaceful. And that's what I'm really grateful for. And my friends and the people that I do business with, I approach business very differently. When I work with clients now, I approach in a very, very different way because I recognize the challenges they're going through, what the fear that they have, and so forth and so on. I know a path through it. I don't proselytize. I don't tell everyone you got to start meditating, you got to go to the Dispenza. That's up to them. That was my journey. I'm happy to share it with people if they want to do it. Because if you're a real skeptic, it means you're living from the neck up, just in your head. If you engage your heart and your gut, you begin to accept different kind of possibilities and realities. And that's what I've seen with the people that I'm doing. And I'm, as you know, Christine, I'm going back to India in 3 weeks because I'm going to take Lauren back to visit some of the places that I went to. We're not going to go to 26. I promise her that. It's only going to be like 10 temples. But I also wanted to experience the ashram, but really, more importantly, get immersed in it. And part of the synchronicity of life is when we moved into our new neighborhood, we have a small enclave here of 35 homes. 20 of them are owned by Indians. And so it's not unusual to look out my window and see people walk around in saris. We've been invited to a lot of these Indian ceremonies like Diwali and so forth and so on, and the Ganesh ceremony and all that. And this India has become part of my life. That whole philosophy, which is an 8,000-year-old civilization, still very active today, unbeknownst to me. And of course, it's the most populous country on the planet that have these practices and beliefs that have endured for thousands of years. And I'm now the beneficiary.
That's wonderful. I would love for you to speak a little bit. We mentioned it at the very beginning of this idea of how this surrender that you've undergone, right? Opening of the heart and this kind of entire experience that you have is really punctuated in the last 6 months, especially with, for one thing, the creation of this podcast in general, right? The willingness to kind of be open about that mystical side of yourself, which, people who know you well have known about forever, but maybe other people don't, who necessarily do that. But also, about 3 months ago now, you shared a very intimate letter that you wrote on LinkedIn that really shared this experience and what it means for you to kind of surrender the control of how you're viewed, surrender the control of feeling like, you have everything under control. Everything is, everything's this kind of illusion that a lot of people like to create, especially when they're executives of I got this all under control, or I've already processed this thing and I'm going to, and I might show a little bit of vulnerability, but I'm really not going to show a lot. I think that as I see your arc in this entire experience, vulnerability and trust and being able to express yourself and to show what you might have previously considered as a weakness is an absolute essential part of this growth for you. So can you tell me a little bit about that and how that's been for you?
I want to go back to when I first had prostate cancer and the surgery. Coming out of COVID, I've been a member of Conscious Capitals for many years. And I was being interviewed to do a session on the struggle is real. And I was going to talk about the bakery going through COVID. The interviewer, we're having our pre-interview, and I were talking, and I just happened to mention that I had prostate cancer surgery. He goes, I want to talk about that. And I go, oh, I don't know about that. I said, I'll talk about the bakery. He goes, no, he goes, that's a struggle. And again, I talked to my wife about it. She said, you could do it. It's going to help other people. And so I did. So I made a statement about it. That was very emotional for me. But I'll tell you, it was profound because I had so many men come up to me and women after I mentioned it. There's a couple hundred people there. And some shared that they just got diagnosed. Some shared that they had it. A woman shared her husband died from it. And I had a dinner that night with a gentleman who said, I want to thank you because you helped me release something. I go, what are you talking about? It was my 2-year-old daughter died 4 years ago. And I've not been able to release the pain of it. I go to her gravesite every week. And I have 2 sons at home. My wife says, you got to pay attention to your sons. Yes, our daughter died, but we have 2 children we have to raise. And he said, and hearing you talk allowed me to release it. We had a very emotional dinner, if you can imagine. And I carry a coin called Metamori, which is you shall die. It's a kind of a thing that I bought from the Stoic website as a remembrance that we will all die, and therefore how you choose to live is what's important. And that was a significant experience. And so now I'm sitting here, I'm now cancer-free, and the question is, do I share that or not? And to what gain? Because I don't need the attention. And I realized that because of the profound effect that it had on people the first time I shared this, maybe there's someone else out there who could experience this journey and know there's a way through it. And so I wrote a letter that I published on LinkedIn, called The Hardest Thing I Ever Had to Write, and shared the emotional journey that we just discussed and the fact that I had the fear, I had the love, and now I'm free of it. And I wanted to share that with people. And I received, an outpouring from everybody who read it to just, celebrate with me. But as I said, it's not over. The journey continues. But I wanted to do that. And since then, I've had half a dozen very intense conversations with men and women about cancer in general, but prostate cancer specifically.
I think that is we've talked in a recent previous episode about victor vessel. And, if you look at your journey through this experience, you had your 15-minute pity party and that experience in COVID, you may not have had the mentality of victim, but there are a lot of people who could look at that and be like, oh man, you were a victim of difficult circumstances, right? And that there's a reality that, there was a lot that went on there, but you switched to your victor, right? And in the process of surrender, we realized that nothing is a zero-sum game, right? And that, that's one of the things that I really highlight, I think, a lot in the work that I do, is this understanding of like, there are so many different things that can win. We're not, are you a victor over cancer? You've suppressed cancer, you fought it. I mean, we use that militaristic language around cancer all the time, right? And I think it helps because it makes people feel like they can fight against something. But, from my perspective, the way that I've seen your journey happen is this surrender even surrender is a militaristic terminology, right? And the idea of what it means to surrender control, which was the pattern that you brought into the cancer, right? Was needing to control everything, not accepting help. And you chose to invert those patterns, right? And you purposely inverted them. You purposely switched them. You purposely said, okay, I'm going to surrender. And that's what allowed you to kind of go into the third stage of being the vessel, right? And you're sharing your journey is a huge part of that, right? In which people can experience shifts and changes and releases because you're saying, I'm surrendering so much that I'm going even further into this lesson of not just like surrendering my private control, but also surrendering my public control, which is a really, really profound thing for you to do, right? Because it's like, we can do everything we want in our private arena and we think that it's going to stay private. But as soon as we step into that public one, it's a level of trust and vulnerability that a lot of people are not willing to do, or it's performative, or it's a spectacle or something along those lines, which is obviously nothing of what you're trying to do. And so, really moving into the vessel part of that has been inspiring for me to watch as you've moved through, recognizing again that just because you had a cancer-free diagnosis doesn't mean that you're not going to continue on this journey to wherever it leads you, right? Whether it leads you to states of agape and states of whatever, agape being the Greek terminology for universal love, as opposed to eros, which is like lustful love, or philos, which is brotherly love. Agape is that universal love. And so yeah, I don't know if you want to say anything about that.
Well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read the last paragraph of the letter I wrote, because I think it puts it together. First part of it explained very much what we talked about in this podcast. So as I close, I go, I'm different now. I cry more easily. I hug longer. I say I love you more often because I know how quickly everything can change. I look at sunrise differently and sunsets, taste food differently, feel gratitude in my bones in a way I never did before. I had to accept that I could die in order to learn how to live. If you're going through something like this, know that you're not alone. The fear is real, the pain is real, but so is the love that surrounds you, even when you can't feel it. Bruce said to me once, Fred, don't focus on eliminating fear, focus on receiving love. It's all around you. So is the strength you didn't know you had. Gratitude is the most powerful force in healing. I'm alive, I'm here, and I'm so grateful I get to tell you about it. With all my love and overwhelming gratitude, Fred.
Beautiful. Thank you.
And right now, my heart is very open.
I feel it too. That's coherence for you.
And so the lesson is gratitude. It's really powerful. Being grateful. For years, I heard about gratitude journals. I thought it was just kind of an Oprah thing. But my God, I learned power of gratitude combined with love. And if love is all around us as the most powerful force in the universe, gratitude is what enables it to come and bring goodness into our lives, regardless of the outcome. And that's the biggest lesson I've learned. And I'm happy that I'm able to share it with people. How it lands, I have no control over, but that's not for me to decide. I can just offer it out and see how people receive it.
Thank you so much, Fred. Thank you so much for your vulnerability and your trust. And I feel honored to have gone through what I went through with you and also to sit here with you today.
Thank you.
Thank you. The Executive and the Mystic podcast, co-hosted by Fred LeFranc and Christina Wiltsey, where wisdom meets business.